Hey, this is Allie, and welcome back to Project Life 2024 in a 9x12 album. This is week 30, which is pretty much the last week in July. I'm just continuing along in my 9x12 album here. I had a July Joys chipboard. I think that that's potentially from last year, sometime in the last couple of years, July chipboard piece, and I added that on to the back side of something that was happening in week 29. Next up, I am grabbing a sticker sheet. This, I believe, is from the July Stories by the Month kit. It's some black label stickers, and I am using a stamp that says "This is Joy." And joy ended up essentially becoming the overarching theme for my spread this week. Sometimes it's fun to have, pick a theme. You've heard me talk about other things. You might be picking a supply, you might be picking a design idea. This time I'm just focusing on the concept of joy. And so even when I was looking for my photos to print for all of the pockets, I was picking out ones that could go along with this theme of joy. And then I also am going to be adding in an insert. I also have some chipboard frames there that were from the Frames scrapbook kit. These are white with gold foil on them, and I'm going to adhere them to the outside of my page protectors with red line tape. You could absolutely put these on top of the photos and slip them inside the pockets. I just personally like working inside and outside of the pockets, and this is a good opportunity to add them on. I would definitely use red line tape or a pretty strong adhesive for anything that you are going to add outside of the page protectors. Just a nice little reminder. So I'm putting those on top of 3 of my photos. I think I end up doing it on top of the girls there rather than the picture of the trombone. Like I said, I had already printed out all my 3x4 and 4x6 photos, following along with the white border on my 4x6s, and then just picking out a few 3x4s to add in. So pretty much, as you can see here, all of my pockets were filled in before I even came over to my table. So I knew that I was going to add either an embellishment or something else behind that food transparency that was from the previous week. That would have been week 29. And then found the July Joys piece there from my stash, which fit perfectly into this project. So getting a little bit more red line tape to adhere this down onto another one of my photos. Originally, I think I was going to do it on top of the girls, which I kind of liked the balance of that better. Maybe I pull it off and move it. Yes, I do. For me, something personally, I just like that balance better. And then I'm going to take those stickers where I stamped "This is Joy." This was from the Pieces of Joy stamp set that we offered as a part of our Pieces of Life collection, and I'm adding that directly onto each one of the photos. Journaling for all of these photos, which is going to just be a few little short thoughts on each of these photos, is actually going to go on to the 7x8.25 piece of pattern paper, the prompt-based pattern paper. It will act as an insert in this particular spread. So when I'm filling in the pockets with the photos, that's usually one of the first things that I'm thinking about is, am I going to fill all of the pockets with photos, or am I going to leave some for journaling? If I am filling in all of the pockets with photos, where am I going to have some kind of journaling? Is it going to be on top of the photos? Is it going to be inside one of the pockets? Is it going to be as an insert? So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about as I am beginning to gather up my photos for a spread like this. There's other times, though, where I am working actually in real time and I am doing working each day during the week. Sometimes I do that. I think actually one of the last videos that I had, I showed where I did that with the temperatures. So sometimes that is also a starting point for me in terms of playing around with the weekly design. All right, so on the back side of the prompt-based paper, which you're going to see in a few minutes here, I took a pattern paper from the Frames Frames scrapbook kit that has that inside white portion there, and I'm actually going to turn this into a frame for the photo I have of Aaron's dad there. His dad passed away last fall, and we had a memorial for him recently. This is one of my favorite photos of him. It is seriously a vibe, and it's also very similar to what some of the boys in our house look like right now. And I think that part makes me laugh as well. On top of the photo of Aaron's dad, this was actually from a little scrapbook that his mom had put together, and she had written down on this little piece of paper, it said he was a great dad. And I loved that she had written that down. I loved that it was in her own handwriting. So in Photoshop, I actually added that on as a second layer on there. So it has her little bit of handwriting. I scanned it in. I took a picture of it actually and then added it on there. So I'm going to tape the back. I just have some Scotch tape. I'm going to tape the photo onto the background frame. I will end up running this through my sewing machine because that's what I like to do. But right now I'm just getting it all in place and then going to trim off along the bottom so that I made sure that the parts that I wanted to be inside of that frame were inside of it. So fun way to use a pattern paper that maybe when you first look at it, you're thinking, oh, I would just add a story on the inside here. Don't forget that you can cut out shapes, which is one of my favorite things to do. So that's going to be a front and back. So the front side is going to be the circles, and that is going to be the part where I'm adding a little bit of context to the photos that I'm adding for this particular week. I think that I end up using the same exact stamp again, which is the one that says "This is joy." That's such a classic, straightforward sentiment, and it fit right inside of those circles. So if you have, I think it's either labels or frames. It's probably frames because I feel like that's one I have out on my desk right now, but the quarterly scrapbook kit, it's one of those. So adding "This is joy" on there. And then I'm also going to add numbers, some more of those gold foil numbers in a couple minutes. But first I'm going to add a page attacher. So this is something that you can add onto your any sort of page that you want to insert into your album without having to punch holes into the papers. There you can see the stitching. It's yellow. It's the same yellow as that's already printed on there. Continuing along with my yellow thread. All right, so I guess I didn't add the page attacher yet. We're going to come back and do that. I think I decided I wanted to add the journaling first. This time I'm using a Micron brush pen, just a little variation on the Kuretake brush pen that I've been using regularly. I'm just kind of playing around with some different brush pens, seeing how they work. This one is nice and thick. I got it in a pack of Micron pens that has a variety of weights for the pen tips, and that's a fun way to kind of play around and experiment with some pens too. So I'm adding, again, I'm looking at the photos and I am seeing what are the different photos that I have in there and what could I, what do I want to add on in terms of just a little bit of information. Obviously this isn't long journaling. Again, I'm kind of in a season of shorter storytelling, which is 100% fine. And we're just going to roll with it because I know that wanting to have some longer form journaling will probably come back again because it does. That's just what happens. But really allowing myself to just do whatever it is I want to do in whatever season I am in. But definitely loving this project right now. And I think loving just the little bit of a switch for myself into a feeling of a more playful attitude towards it, and kind of letting go of whatever random things that I had in my own head about what it was supposed to look like and what it's supposed to be. I'm just making it work for me right now. And this is the kind of stuff that I've been advocating for years and years and years for people. And sometimes I forget to listen to my own suggestions and my own kind of wisdom that has come from years and years of memory keeping and documenting and prioritizing, this lifestyle as something that's really important to me and something that I really like and something that's a big part of who I am. And so I know there's some of you out there that feel the same. All right, so now I'm adding on the page attacher. These have been restocked. If you've been looking for these recently, they were restocked with our travel collection this year. I love them. They are so easy to be able to add different size pages in. You can add it into a Project Life album. You can add, other random page sizes if you're doing like a 6x8 album. They're also great for December daily if you participate in that project. It's just a fun way to add some other things in without having to punch holes. And as you guys know, I punch holes lots of the time. So that part is fine for me as well. All right, this time I chose to do all red line tape there, so it went on the other side of the page attacher. Sometimes I'll do rolling adhesive with these kinds of pages. They generally stick together. I haven't run into an issue where I can see that pages are coming apart in my previous albums where I used rolling adhesive, but this time red line tape is doing the trick. So I love that, I've got one side here that relates to all of the different photos, and then I have the photo of Aaron's dad there, and I have a couple secondary photos from his celebration as well. Here's where I'm grabbing those gold foil numbers. I believe these were from December Daily last year, maybe the year before, something that we generally offer with that collection. And I'm just adding numbers on top to each one of those and then adding a number onto the photo. So we have corresponding journaling for each one of my photos. And again, it's just real super short, kind of highlighting some of the different things that are happening around here in this particular week. Now I am going to add, I end up changing, I think I had put the 3 on there, and I decided I want to add the 3 over onto this other guy. I do it a couple times because I get it in the wrong place and I wanted it in a specific place related to that frame, and for some reason it took me a couple times to do that. But that's what I wanted for number 3, so I'm going to switch that around and get that in the right place on there that can correspond then with the pattern paper that's going to act as my insert. So then I've got another one, and again, going back to that concept that I've talked a little bit about in the recent videos of documenting the documenting. That is something that I haven't done a lot of in past years, and maybe some of that was I had more content from my kids or more content from different things that were filling in those spaces, but maybe it also just kind of represents a shift for me in the project where it's very much more taking ownership of, these are my stories. And if I'm including any stories about anybody else, they're still coming from my perspective, right? I can only tell my own story. My kids are going to have their own stories of what they've experienced and witnessed and who they are on the inside and who they want to celebrate themselves being and all those kinds of things. So always kind of keeping that in mind as I am working through on these projects. So adding all of those cute little foil numbers on there, those gold foil numbers. Then I decided to write a little additional bit of information around the outside edge of the frame that is on this particular pattern paper. That just gave me a little bit more space to write a little bit more about Aaron's dad. I'm pretty sure that back in November, which is when he passed away, that I did write some about that in some previous projects. And so now this has given me a little opportunity to write a little bit more about him and about getting together and celebrating. And so in this case, I'm using a thinner pen. This is going to be a Micron, probably like an 01, 03 or an 01, a thinner one, but not the super, super thin. And just going around the outside, letting that dictate how much I actually write. Letting that shape dictate that, and letting, as I get closer to the end, knowing that I'm going to be wrapping it up, or that I need to wrap up the thoughts that I am adding onto this particular page. Let's see, what else do I do? So I stamped "This is Joy" on there as well. And then I am also going to handwrite on there that is Aaron's mom's handwriting on that little thing that I added in Photoshop, just as a reference to anybody that would look at it in the future to know that was her who wrote that on there, because I really like that part. All right, getting close to wrapping this one up. I did end up adding a couple of those gold stars. I used those in a previous one. It's the same gold as on the numbers. Love how that turned out. The last thing that I did is I grabbed a tab sticker from one of our past kits, and I'm going to fold that over and slip that in between the 2 insert pages, or the 1 insert page there that is adhered back to back. It's a little bit tight because of that red line tape. Sometimes I wish I would think of this before I adhere them together, because I almost always add a tab. A lot of times though, it's an Avery Index tab, and that can go on the outside edge. All right, as we wrap this one up, let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below. And I'm just going to be continuing on with this project now that I'm all caught up. Oh, the last thing I did is I added in a pattern card there, just kind of flipped through my cards, and I'll be stamping the date directly on to that pattern. Like I said, I'm going to be continuing to work along in Project Life. This has me all caught up, and I've actually done the next week as well, so that's kind of exciting. I don't know how long I'll stay caught up, but it feels pretty good right now. And I have another video too coming up that will show you a flip through of May through June. May, June, and July. I am in my second album now for 2024, planning to just have two.